What is up, dudes and lady dudes? Welcome back to Just Nuts, guys. Today, I've got new reveals from Phantom Rage. This is so hype because we are officially getting the two other familiars that we weren't getting in the structure deck, but we knew we were going to get at some point, and I'm really happy that they're coming in like the next set after the Charmer structure deck. It's so clean. So the OCG is going to have this in like literally 3 days. We're going to have it in like 3 months. But we're also getting like the Charmer structure deck in 2 months. So we're literally going to get this like right after, which is so nice for the Charmer deck because they definitely need all the help they can get. So we also have an insanely generic like beast monster that we're going to get to in a sec that really helps with like Tri Brigade and any other like Beast Warrior and Winged Beast decks, but we'll get to him in a second. Okay, so starting off with the new familiars here, we have Awakening of the Possessed Gagigo Bite. Now, before I even talk about these cards, I want to mention that we know what the Earth and the Fire one do. And essentially what they are is they pull themselves out of the deck, and then they usually, on summon, will act as whatever their spiritual art card, like their corresponding attribute spiritual art card is. So the Earth one summons an Earth from grave. The Fire one burns your opponent. That's like pretty much exactly what the counterparts of their spiritual art like trap cards do. So so just to keep in mind, the Water one lets you tribute a water to just look at your opponent's entire hand and discard a card that you want. And the Wind one lets you tribute a wind to target a card your opponent controls and place it on the bottom of their deck. So a really strong removal and a really strong just like look like information on your opponent's hand and a rip of any cards. So just keep that in mind that as we're going into these. So all right, starting off here, we'll start off with Gagigo Bite. We have level 5 water reptile effect monster. We've been asking for that reptile support. I don't think this really counts, but okay. He has 2,000 attack and 200 defense, so is still a beater. His second and third effects, of course, are hard once returns, but his first is not. His first effect is that same summoning condition we've seen from the other two. You can special summon him from your hand or your deck by sending one face-up spellcaster monster you control and one level 4 or lower water monster you control to the graveyard. So it's an inherent summon. It's insanely strong. You can't really negate it because it's not an effect unless you can negate the summon itself, which is really nice. And then the second effect says, when this card is special summoned, by the way, written on its first effect, you can send one random card from your opponent's hand to the graveyard. Then each player draws one card. Okay, so obviously what I was hoping for, best case scenario, I think, would have been like when this card's summoned, look at your opponent's hand and send one card from your opponent's hand to the graveyard. Like that would have been best case scenario. Unfortunately, it does give your opponent a redraw, and it's not a targeted rip, it's a random rip. But still, I mean, just like if you send something that like totally telegraphs exactly what your opponent's playing, you then know how you can plan the rest of your turn or the rest of like what you want to do with your combo to set up against them. Not that this deck particularly has a ton of versatility in that anyway, that like you may have only one play from there anyway, whether you see their hand or not, but maybe it's more so like how you sequence what you're like stopping because you already know like what they're playing. I don't know, it's stuff like that. But you also do get to draw a card as well. It's not just rip a card out of your opponent's hand, your opponent draws a card. It's rip a card your opponent draws, but you also draw. So you also do get like a plus off that, which is really nice at the very least, but could have been better in my opinion. And then the third effect, if this card is sent from the field to the graveyard, you can add a spiritual water art or one possessed spell or trap from your deck to the hand. Very, very nice effects as well because, like I was saying, the spiritual water art's actually pretty nasty. It's tribute any water, look at your opponent's entire hand, and rip a card right out of there. This is really nice to see because now this deck has a searchable way, turn 1, to do that targeted rip. So if you and even though this one doesn't do the targeted rip, you do at least get to search a targeted rip, which is actually pretty good. You know, just rip the most powerful card out of your opponent's hand. So, and then of course, even if you don't want that, you do still have the generic ability to search any of the possessed cards you want. There's like 3 pretty good ones at this point. So I like this. I think it's fine. I think it's good. I don't think it's the best case scenario we could have gotten, but it's still good, and it's really nice to pair with the Earth one. And then we have the Wind one, which is Rasa and Ryu. All this stuff is the same, except it's a 5 wind dragon instead of a 5 water reptile. Same stats, 2,200. Second and third effects, hard once returns, but the first one is not. First effect is literally the same, except you have to send level 4 lower wind instead of a level 4 lower water, and a spellcaster. So very same there. Second effect though, when this card is special summoned, by the way, on its first effect, you can return any one card your opponent controls to the hand. This is actually pretty nice because it gives the deck actual removal, which could provide the deck with a way to play second. I mean, like, listen, it's not great because all it takes is like one negate on this, but I mean, even if they negate it, they don't get bounced, but then you do get to just like potentially link this card off and then get a search anyway. Like it feels like pretty nice because it's an effect that your opponent might want to negate, but then they're just like, but then when you just like keep going, they're just like, oh man, that negate did not really stop much. So it's interesting in that regard. One thing I do love as well is it's not targeting. It doesn't target at all. It's just summon, and if they don't respond, you can bounce whatever you want, which is pretty cool. Bounces back row potentially, like, I don't know, weird striker matchups where they set up Widow Anchor. You could bounce the Widow Anchor, like, I don't know, like, and it gets banished. I couldn't tell you, but I couldn't tell you like other great circumstances. Bouncing back row is never really that good, but mainly monsters, hopefully extra deck monsters, so they're just going back into the extra deck there. But it's pretty nice. And then of course the third effect is the same as well. When he's sent to field to the graveyard, from field to the graveyard, you can add a spiritual art. Well, you can add a spiritual art card or a possessed spell or trap from your deck to the hand. Same thing. The spiritual art card, like I said before, the wind one is also pretty nice. It's tribute any wind monster, then target one card your opponent controls and put it on the bottom of the deck. That's again pretty good removal, but also disruption. And that's one thing I wanted to note here is that I think with Charmers, the only in-archetype disruption that they really had access to prior to this was like the new trap card that just like can conditionally allow you to pop something. So like a drying effect is like fine, but it's not amazing. This actually gives us like a legitimate way to like guarantee search like a disruption, and a pretty good one at that. I mean, it's targeting, not even shuffle back into the deck, but targeting to the bottom of the deck, which is honestly pretty good. It's good against stuff like Adamantipator, hitting like a block dragon, just boom, back to the deck with you. Could be very, 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 very key and stuff, keeping them off their grind game. And then again, as we've seen, worst case scenario, grab one of your possessed spell or traps and go from there. So really, really nice. I think they both are really nice welcome additions, just bolstering this set even more. Really happy to see them. And yeah, I can't wait to pick up this set. This set looks so good. All right. And then we have Zoo King Alpha. This is the other new card we got revealed today. This card's so good, man. I love this card. All right. He's a level 8 beast effect monster. He has 3,000 attack, 2,500 defense. That's how you know he's good, when he has that stat line. That's like such a marquee stat line in Yu-Gi-Oh! He cannot be normal summoned or set. Fine. He must first be special summoned from your hand while the total attack of all monsters your opponent controls is higher than the total attack of all monsters you control. Make note here, this is not a once per turn summoning clause, right? Like he can just summon himself immediately for free, and it's not once per turn. There's no clause on him that says you can only summon him once per turn this way. If you open multiples, you could drop one, and if your opponent still has more than 3,000 attack on board, boom, drop a second one. Very, very good in that way. But the icing on the cake here is this effect, right? It's a hard once per turn. First effect, you can target any number of beast, beast warrior, and or winged beast monsters you control. So that's cost is targeting your beast, beast warriors, and winged beasts. For the rest of this turn, Zoo King Alphas cannot attack directly. Also, return the targeted monster to the hand, then return to the hand face-up monsters your opponent controls equal to the number you first returned. Okay, so that's kind of like a long, weird, like run-on sentence, but long story short, you're targeting your beast warrior. So like, let's say the situation is you just go him. You special summon him, you target himself as cost. From that point, your opponent has to respond, otherwise he's going to bounce himself, and then he can immediately bounce any other card, any other monster your opponent controls, which is insanely strong for a couple reasons, okay? This card, first off, does not target your opponent's stuff. It targets your own beast, your own beast warriors, and winged beasts, but it doesn't target anything your opponent controls. So it's non-targeting bounces, and it can be mass bounces. I mean, if you open 2 of him, you drop 2 on the field, boom, you could bounce both and just bounce 2 monsters, non-targeting. Or you just do 1, even with just 1. Like, and here's the other thing. When this card resolves, or if it doesn't, it's so good. Like, if it doesn't, you still just keep it 3,000 beater. You haven't committed your normal summon yet, but your opponent had to negate it already, so they're already down one of their disruptions that you already baited out. And if it wasn't a negate and destroy, you still keep him on the field to apply pressure with. And if he does resolve, it's so busted because he bounces himself to hand, and then because his summoning effect is still, like I said, not once per turn or anything, you can just immediately drop him on the board again, because once you bounce him, you have 0 attack on your board. Assuming your opponent has any other monster on the field, you're just like, boom, Zoo King Alpha again. You can't activate his effect, but now you do have a 3k beater to just like continue to just run over your opponent with. This card is insanely strong. It reminds me of Dino Wrestler Pankratops. Now, Pank can kind of double as like potentially disruption during your opponent's turn and stuff, but I think this guy may be better in terms of like its raw capabilities just going second. Non-target, you can bounce himself and then summon himself again. That's one thing this card definitely has over Pank, is that this card can be summoned more than once per turn. I love this card. On top of the fact that we're getting Tri-Brigade in this set, so it pairs so nicely with like anything that's Beast, Warrior, Wing Beast to potentially bounce more than just one card. Very, very strong, particularly something like Ancient Warriors. That's a deck that a lot of people want to like hard go second with. This card is very nice for them. I definitely love this card. I definitely want to pick up a play set of this card. We'll see how high his rarity is, but he's insane. We also don't know if like a Zoo King is like a new like archetype, or this also could be a translation thing. This could be Beast King Alpha. And you know how we have Beast King Barbaros? Remember how a long time ago we got the new, not a long time, but I think what, Savage Strike? I want to say Savage Strike, or maybe it's Ignition Assault. We got the new Beast King Barbaros card, and this card could be like the Beast King Alpha, like the second card in the archetype, because it kind of has like that stat line, that big stat line, jumps in the field, kind of pairs with that. We'll see on that though. But that's going to do it for me, guys. Thank you so much for watching this video. As always, let me know your thoughts on all of these. If you're a big Charmer fan, let me know how much you think these can do for the deck, how much they open up possibilities, you know. And also let me know on this guy. I think this guy is like legitimately a card everybody's going to want to get their hands on when this set drops. So, like, one of the really good cards in this set that's like actually just like fully generic, which I love. So let me know your thoughts down below on the 2 new cards. Thank you so much for watching as always, guys. Subscribe if you have not yet and you want to stay up to date on all Yu-Gi-Oh news. Any card that gets revealed, I'm pretty much reviewing it. So yeah, thank you so much for watching, guys. I love you. Peace.